going to talk about anxiety today. Anxiety is one of the emotions that I have struggled with a huge amount in my life, and the DBT skills have helped me to make anxiety a much smaller part of my life, and when I do have it, a much more manageable beast to have. So today what I want to do is to go through the DBT skills that are most effective in decreasing anxiety. And I want to start by talking a little bit about emotions in general and the emotion of fear, which is what anxiety is. First of all, I want to talk about emotions are always experiences that are temporary. They often feel permanent. Like if you are an anxious person like me, you might feel like I'm always anxious about something. I'm anxious before I go to work, and I'm anxious before a first date, and I'm anxious before I get my test results back. But what actually happens with our emotions is that we have a short experience of an intense emotion, and then it may decrease a little bit and then get bigger again. And what we're working towards in DBT is to make the experience shorter and less intense. We can't control our emotions. We can't control which emotions that we have. We all get pissed off sometimes. We all get nervous sometimes and sad and feel embarrassed sometimes. We are also all capable of feeling happy and peaceful. And so the DBT skills are really about learning to expand positive emotional experiences like peace and joy and love and fun and excitement, all of those ones that we like, that we would like to experience more often. And the skills we're going to focus on today are about decreasing painful emotions and specifically decreasing the emotion of fear. So I want to take a moment to talk about the emotion of fear. The emotion of fear is a primal emotion that we all have. And when I say all of us, I mean every human being on the planet, and I also mean most animals. I'm going to talk to you today about anxiety. Anxiety comes from the emotion of fear. It's one of our core emotions that everyone on the planet experiences from time to time. Some of us experience it more often than others, and that's when fear becomes dysregulated. I'm going to talk to you for a few minutes about the purpose of fear as an emotion and healthy fear, and when fear becomes dysregulated, when it overwhelms us and makes us miserable in our lives, when it stops us from living the life that we want for ourselves, what skills can we use to decrease it so it gets back to a healthier place, a place where we're happier and it's not controlling our lives so much. Emotions are short-term experiences, and when I first heard this, it sounded wrong to me. Like, no, I'm anxious all the time. It's not a short-term experience. What I mean by that is that every moment we are responding to everything going on around us. We're also responding to what we're focusing on. Like I may be here in the room with you right now, but maybe my thoughts are on a fight I had with my husband. My thoughts are on what I'm gonna make for dinner tonight, or something that hurt my feelings last week or pissed me off this morning. It's very easy for us as individuals to take our thoughts and funnel them in a different direction than what's happening right now. Our emotions are here to keep us safe. And what I mean by that is, as individuals and as a species, all emotions motivate us into action. When you feel angry, think of the last time that you felt angry. And it could be like irritated, or it could be like full on rage. Take a moment to think about it, like the last time. What urge did you have to do behaviorally? Like what did you, not thoughts in your head, but what did you want to do physically? And for most of us, basically all of us, when we feel angry, we have the urge to attack. And we do it in different ways. Some people punch someone in the face. My 2-year-old will just come up to you and smack you if he feels angry, and that's sort of the primal urge we all have. Some of us do it with a smile and a like sneaky little email later, or just thoughts about things that we could say or do. But the response is the same. We feel anger, we have the urge to attack. We feel sad and we have the urge to retreat. This is why depression anywhere in the world looks the same. It doesn't matter if you you live on Park Avenue in New York City, or you live in rural China and you've never heard of DBT or emotions, if you're depressed, you will have the urge to retreat, to not be around other people, to not be active, to go in a room and shut the door. That urge is the same. Sadness causes us to retreat. Now, fear is a little bit different. Fear causes us to have the urge to run away. And there's many ways to run away. We can physically run away. We can emotionally run away by not thinking about something that we're fearful of. We can not engage in the situation because we're so caught up in our worries. So fear is another emotion that has an important purpose in our lives. We feel fear as a protective device. If there is a scary looking guy behind me in a dark alley reaching for something inside his bag, I feel fear and I have the strong urge to run away. I'm gonna run faster than if you just said to me, Beth, run across the room. I might be like, all right, give me a minute, let me get my shoes on. But if I feel fear, I run so much faster. And that's what emotions are supposed to do. They're supposed to protect us. They're supposed to get our antennas going. Am I safe or not? Now that's something that we all need to have in our lives to protect ourselves. Sometimes you meet someone and you just have a feeling something's not quite right. We need to learn to listen to that. What we want to not get stuck in is being fearful all the time when there is no imminent danger to us. That's when we want to try to use some of the skills we're going to talk about today to regulate the emotion. And to me, what regulate emotion means is like you have a volume button and you could just turn it down a little bit. We can't control that we're going to feel fear sometimes when we are not in imminent danger. We can't control that some of us struggle with anxiety more often than others. Some people have a tendency towards anger. Some people have a tendency towards depression. There's biological factors involved. There's just human differences. I have brown eyes, some people have blue eyes. That's just the way we are, and some of us, we just have a tendency towards certain emotions. Usually runs in families, you'll notice. Like my family, a lot of anxiety, and I have that as well. So does my son. No matter how many skills I teach him, he has that tendency towards anxiety, towards fear. So I want you to be thinking about which tendencies you have. The more you know about your own emotions and tendencies, what the pattern is, the more you can apply the skills. And it's really just like, okay, so I'm not a sports expert, so if I get this wrong, give me a break, but the idea is the same. Before the Super Bowl, the coaches of both teams will watch the footage again and again of the other team. They want to know every move that they have, every attack that's going to be coming their way, so they can make a counterattack, so they can be ready and not be caught off guard. And that's what we are going to be learning to do with our skills here today, is to be ready. Like I know when I have anxiety, I start getting all kinds of thoughts about the future, way off, that maybe would never happen 30 years from now. Those are going to be coming my way. So what can I do to combat those thoughts so they don't overtake me, so they don't help me get into a panic attack? So what I want to talk about now is what fear is, how we feel it in our body, because that's one way we become more aware. And then the most important part, the part everybody's waiting for, is how do I decrease it? Okay, once you know you have it, then you want to know what's the treatment, what's the medication I can give to myself so that I have less fear. So most of us, I would say, over the years, I've worked with thousands of clients with anxiety disorders. So for most people that I've worked with, thousands of clients over the last 12 years, the most common experience of fear is feeling a heaviness in the chest area, feeling like something is pressing on your chest, like you can't get a breath in. That's why a lot of times people who are having panic attacks, having in huge experiences of fear, think that they're having a heart attack, because it sort of feels the same way. You're having a tightness, like you can't get breath in. Other really common experiences are having a hard time sitting still, fidgeting a lot, Like some people tap their feet a lot. Sometimes when I'm teaching meditation, you can hear that clicking in the back. Somebody just can't sit still. The fear is just increasing their energy in their body. Fear is a very activating emotion. While sadness or depression is deactivating, it causes us to feel tired and not much energy. Anxiety does the opposite. We get a burst of nervous energy that's motivating us into action. So I want you to think about when you experience fear, what it actually feels like inside your body. That's truly what emotion is. Emotion is a physical sensation, and it has a similar pattern. Once you identify it once, you'll be able to notice it much more often, and that's actually a good thing. Some of the DBT skills are, it's kind of counterintuitive and very simple. And I don't want you to confuse simple with easy. All of these skills sound pretty simple. You have it described to you and it's like, maybe I could do that. When we're in the midst of our own emotional turmoil, our own emotional storm, this is extremely hard to do. So it does not mean you're a failure if you try this and it feels too hard or too confusing or that it didn't work. This takes repeated practice. But what I can tell you is that it does work. There's research that shows it works. I personally can tell you it's transformed my own experience of anxiety. I don't need medication anymore, and I am a much happier person. I'm not perfect. I do not have a perfect life in any stretch of the imagination, but I wouldn't say my anxiety is paralyzing anymore, which at one point in my life it really was for me. I want you to think about trying these skills even if you don't feel like it. That's really when they're going to be most effective. So the first step, okay, we're going to talk about 5 different steps in decreasing anxiety. Some of them are going to be about things to do every day to bring down your overall level of anxiety, like when your feet hit the floor, when you get out of bed in the morning. How can we bring ourselves down to a calmer place so that anything that happens is less of an overwhelming experience? Some of these tips are going to be for when you're in the midst of the storm, and that's really, we all need those tips. What do I do when I'm overwhelmed with anxiety? So first of all, I want you to be thinking about your pattern with how you relate to your anxiety, and it usually follows a pattern similarly to all of the emotions that you have that you don't like. And so there's 2 extremes. One extreme is the individual who sees something coming at them that they don't like. They have a family event to go to, or a job interview, or an uncomfortable conversation, or bills are due that you don't have enough money for. Something is happening, is going to happen that you are not excited about, that you're nervous about or worried about. And some of us have the tendency to do this. If I don't think about it and I don't focus on it, I don't have to worry about it. Now think about, if you do this, you'll know what the problem is. So many clients that I've worked with, what they've told me the problem with this is, when it happens, they're not ready. They've ignored it, hoping that it won't happen. And it's sort of like standing underneath a wave and just hoping it doesn't crash on you. Guess what? If you're underneath the wave, it's gonna crash on you. So you need a plan of what to do to keep your head above water. The other extreme, which is more my pattern, is you do not do this. You do like this, where it's all you see. Someone can be talking to me, and over time I've developed, like, I can seem kind of like calm on the outside, but inside I'm like tunnel vision, thinking about my worries, turning them over in my head, obsessing on them. That's all I'm focused on. The bizarre thing is, whether you do this or you do this, either end of the spectrum, you're doing the same thing, which is actually increasing your experience of fear. It's rising as you do these things, as you repress it or as you obsess on it. So the skills that we're going to talk about is about learning to come to this center ground where we are aware of our emotions. We don't run away from them, but we also do not drown ourselves in the misery and the pain that anxiety can be. So step number 1 is to practice mindful awareness of your emotions. What that means is that you are turning your mind away from the actual source of your anxiety. So what I mean by that is all the thoughts that go through your head that are swarming, all the thoughts that everything's fine, or I'm never gonna make it, I can't take it, it's gonna be horrible. All of those kind of swarming thoughts that anxiety have created, rather than remaining focused on them, we turn our mind away from them, and instead we bring our attention to our physical body, remembering that anxiety, like all other emotions, is a sensation inside the body. That's how we have the thought, I'm anxious, I'm losing it, I can't take it anymore, because we have that pressure in the chest, or we have that tightening in the jaw area. For me, I often have like a contraction in my shoulders, and like I get really tight back here. So for those of you who know me, I have a tendency many times a day to sort of do this. So I'm seeing how tight my muscles are. Our emotions are sensations in the body, and what the sensations do is they create a contraction. And you can literally work with your emotion by working together with your physical body. This is not some sort of like theory that I came up with. This is actual science of emotions. So what you want to do is, again, you're bringing your thoughts away from your worries or from pushing your worries away, and instead you're facing emotions straight on. You're saying, I feel anxious. Where do I feel it in my body? What does it actually feel like? Does it feel like a swirling inside my stomach? That's a really common experience. Does it feel like pressure or tightening inside the chest? For me, it's that tightening up in the shoulder area. So what I do is I feel it, and I notice like, oh, it's really tight today. It like hurts if I even put my finger there. That means I have a lot of anxiety today. And then the second part of mindfulness with emotions, and you're doing this at the same time, you're facing that you feel anxious, you're observing and describing to yourself exactly the sensation you feel. So heaviness in the chest, I feel it more on the left side than on the right. Feels a little bit warm, sort of prickly, feel like a shortness of breath. You're really getting into the details of what you are experiencing. There's research that shows just by doing this, you regulate your emotion, you turn down the intensity of the emotion. And the other piece of this is the details of it help your mind stay off of topics that are going to keep you revving up more and more, increasing the anxiety. The second part that I want you to do along with it is to gently relax the muscles of your body. So if you're someone like me and you have tension in your neck, you not only feel how tense it is, but you kind of rub it, you move your shoulders around a little bit and let them hang down. And just by doing this, if you tune in and you start watching, you'll notice that you feel a little bit less of the fear, of the anxiety. If you feel it in your chest, I want you to try to take a deep breath, open your chest as much as you can, and on your exhale, try to allow the muscles inside your chest to relax and open. Same thing with your stomach. So you may have to do it over and over. It doesn't always happen the first time that you do this, but you keep practicing it. And remember, with all of DBT skills, you're not looking for perfection. If you're having a panic attack, don't even wish for feeling like the happiest, most peaceful ever. That's not realistic. That's not real life. We all know that. Drugs can sometimes do that for us, but we can't do that ourselves, and it's not actually a failing. We can actually have huge success with going from a panic attack to feeling just a little bit anxious. That's a huge movement. So I want you to not discount that. And the more you'll be able to see that smaller movement is by checking in on a regular basis. So be noticing your emotions, observe and describe them anytime you feel them. And then as often as you can, I probably do this 30 times a day, more often on my rougher days, is relax the muscles of your body. Nobody knows you're doing this. You can do this while you're talking to someone who is difficult for you to deal with. You can do this while I am holding my screaming baby, relaxing my muscles, and it's helping me to get less agitated. So that's step number one, is mindfulness of emotions, which means you bring your attention to the emotion as you experience it in your body. you observe and describe it, and then you gently relax the muscles of your body. Okay, so that's step number one. Step number two is very similar but slightly different, and this is the skill of ride the wave of emotion. And what this means is that instead of trying to fix, and like I like to think of it like cut or kill an emotion, which is usually what we feel like doing if we have an emotion we don't like. How can I get rid of it? That's what we're all aiming to do. Instead of that, you're aiming to move with the emotion rather than against it. And I sort of think of this as sort of like a martial art. Like instead of moving away from your opponent, you're leaning in, and you're sort of using your own body and your own intuition to move with it to get through the stormy waters. And I literally think of this as like body surfing. Like imagine yourself lifting your feet up as you're in the ocean and moving with the waves so that you're not creating resistance against the water coming towards you. So ride the wave is really about learning to be in anxiety. You have relaxed with it with your mindfulness of emotion, have acknowledged it, and now instead of trying to fix it, you're just trying to survive it by moving with it. Okay, I still feel tight in my shoulders, and I still have a little burning and swooshing in my lower left part of my stomach. Okay, so I feel it. I move with it. I stop trying to control it. And the weird thing with our emotions is the more we try to control our emotions, the more they actually grow and increase and overwhelm us. So you want to just allow yourself to go through your day, allow yourself to feel it, and just move with the anxiety. Stop trying to put up that fight and that force. I think of this sort of like a tug of war. When you're pulling so hard and the other side is pulling tighter, think of your emotions like the Incredible Hulk. Like you're not going to win. I don't care how strong you are, how much you work out, you're not going to win if the Incredible Hulk is on the other side of a tug of war. How you may win is by tricking the Incredible Hulk, by letting go. By letting go of that control and that force, he may fall down, and that way you win. And that's sort of how it works with anxiety. Stop trying to fight it, and it will naturally decrease on its own. And this is one where I heard this and I was sort of like, yeah, right. Try it yourself and see what you can observe as you practice this skill. So to ride the wave of emotion, what I want you to do first, you're practicing mindfulness of emotion. That's important. You have to first face your opponent in order to have any chance of decreasing the attack on yourself, which is really what anxiety is. It's taking you away from who you are, what matters to you, the person that you are capable of being if you can calm down that anxiety. So that's the first part. You have to face it first. But once you've faced it, you want to try to move with it. Okay, you have some anxiety. Okay, you feel anxious and you feel a little uncomfortable. Ride the wave is about being comfortable with being uncomfortable, about stopping this urge to try to fix it all and make it all perfect. Instead, we kind of get knocked back and forth a little bit, but we didn't drown. That's what I want you to think of with relating to your emotions with ride the wave. So the next skill I want to teach you, and this is probably the one that most clients tell me is effective for them, which is interesting because I don't really like to teach this skill because it's so simple. I sort of feel like it's overly simple. But you know what? Sometimes simple is good. When your mind is racing with a million thoughts, when you're feeling completely overwhelmed, like you can't take one more thing, it's kind of good to have something simple to grab onto that can help you survive in a difficult moment. And that's what this skill is. It's called pace breathing. Pace breathing, there's research that shows pacing your breathing in this way that I'm going to teach you actually decreases your blood pressure. Don't worry, it's not going to like harm you in any way. And if you have high blood pressure, good. This will be an added bonus for you. It just decreases your blood pressure enough that it causes sort of a calming effect. And I'm going to teach you some other skills that are useful in changing your body's physiology to help you gain more control with emotions. But this is a really popular one with the clients that I've worked with, and I have used it particularly if I feel anywhere close to a panic attack. So for those of you who struggle with panic attacks, I want this to become like your, I don't know, 5 times a day best friend. The more you practice it, the easier it's going to be. And again, it goes back to that concept we talked about a few minutes ago, where we want to be constantly working to bring our level of anxiety down. Anytime we can bring it down, that means panic that we have is going to be that much smaller, because we're not going to be already at an overwhelmed place. So this works anytime, any moment when you feel happy, you can practice it, but particularly in the midst of an emotional storm, I want you to go to this skill. Okay, so what this skill is, pace breathing, it's about timing your inhale and your exhale. So to start off with, what you do is you count your natural breaths. How many seconds does it take you to inhale and to exhale? And you just take an average. Don't worry about perfection, okay? Perfection doesn't matter. It's just noticing, like if I just breathe naturally, it'll take me about 2.5 seconds, and that's average for me. I learned this skill when I was 8 months pregnant, and my breath was like 1 second. I've worked with some clients who their inhale is like 4 seconds. So just take the average. There's no answer that's better or worse. It's just working with your natural breath. So what you do for pace breathing is you count your inhales so they're about the same length each time. So 2.5 seconds is what my inhale is. So I count 1, 2.5. And then what you do is you extend your exhale so that it's 2 seconds longer than your inhale. That's the rhythm that you want to get for yourself. So for me, 2.5 seconds in, 4.5 seconds out. And what you're doing is you're turning your mind completely to your breathing, to counting your breathing, but also to the sensation of breathing. So you're noticing the air, you're noticing every detail of the air, like coming in your nostrils and feeling your nostrils expand, and feeling the air coming up through your nose, and even that subtle sort of like gulping that we do, pulling that air in so that it will fill up our lungs. You're noticing every tiny bit as you exhale, either out of your mouth or out of your nose, the sensation of air around your lips, of release that happens on that exhale. So your mind is completely focused as much as you possibly can. Sort of think of something that you think about and you're 100% focused. Some people have that experience during exercise. And
why don't you repeat that?
Okay. Think of a time where you've been completely absorbed in one thought. And for those of you who obsess, you are already masterminds at this. You want to take that skill of obsessing and use it in a productive way. And if you can turn that single pointed concentration, that's what they call it in meditation practices, you can take that being so focused on one thing instead of on worry, and instead to your breathing, you will notice a vast difference in how you actually feel. For others of you, it might be like when you get mad, all you can think about is how someone pissed you off. Or you are madly in love and all you can think about is being with that other person. We all have that ability to focus on one thing. And so I want you to take that, harness that ability, and to use it with the breathing. It's like, it's not just paying attention, it's 100% participation. 100% participation.
So why don't you repeat that sentence?
I want you to think about some way that you have focused completely when you are exercising as hard as you can or playing sports. That's a big one for a lot of people. They call it like in the zone for athletes. It's like all they're doing is 100% into that exercise. For some people, it's like when you get your feelings hurt, you think about constantly how that person hurt you and offended you and how wrong it was or how bad you are, and you just focus on that, or you just focus on fantasizing about being with someone that you're in love with or infatuated with. I want you to take that ability, that single pointed concentration, and I want you to harness it for your breathing. So you're focusing on the counting, and you're also focusing on the entire experience of breathing. And you are completely moving aside all other thoughts in your head, and you are just 100% in that moment with your breath, and you're pacing your breath. The research shows that in as little as 3 minutes of practicing paced breathing, but really bringing that full attention, to get the results you have to bring your full attention. In as little as 3 minutes, you can drastically bring down the intensity of the emotion. If you're really, really angry, it's not like all the anger is going to be gone, but it's going to be like you were at a 10 and now you're at a 4. The difference between a 10 and a 4 is not ripping someone's head off, not getting into a road rage interaction, not breaking up with someone that you truly love. There's a huge difference between those levels of intensity. So that's what we're working to do. Particularly with anxiety, you're working just to come to a place where you can function, where you can think clearly again, because when you're overwhelmed with anxiety, you can't think clearly, where you can function throughout your day and maybe even have moments of peace and joy in the midst of an anxious and difficult time. Okay.
How long should someone practice that for?
So you need, okay, so if you can, I encourage you with paced breathing to do 2 things. I encourage anyone who has any level of anxiety to practice paced breathing throughout the day. I encourage you to practice it especially when you first wake up in the morning, like the first moment that you open your eyes. Rather than, where's the coffee, what time is it, what am I going to do? I want you to practice 3 minutes of paced breathing. So you turn your complete attention first thing in the morning to practicing this. You'll be practicing it sort of like going to the gym every day. So if you ever run a marathon, if you go to the gym every day, you're going to do okay. That's the same thing with this. You want to practice every single day so that the moments when you do get really anxious, you'll be able to use this skill and it will greatly help you. Practice it first thing in the morning. Practice it throughout the day when you're feeling tense. And I encourage you to do at least 3 minutes. So if you can do more than that, if you have time for 10 minutes, go for it. There's a lot of research that shows that we can actually rewire our brain when we focus our mind in different directions. So the rewiring of your brain is going to happen faster the more you do it. You become an expert in whatever you do. So many of you are experts at anxiety, not realizing it, not trying to be an expert in anxiety, but by focusing so much on your worries and your fears and trying to handle and control your anxiety, you're actually becoming a master at anxiety. And instead, we want to put our energies and our attention into becoming masters at coping with anxiety, becoming masters at calming ourselves and soothing ourselves. And you actually can see in MRIs new brainwaves created, new pathways created by practicing this specific skill. So at least 1 time a day for anyone who has anxiety. And as soon as you notice that you are getting very anxious, I want you to start off with being aware of the emotion of fear. So mindfulness of emotion, ride the wave. It's okay to be anxious. And then throw yourself into the paced breathing again and again. Try 3 minutes. If you're still feeling overwhelmed, keep going with it. Again, you can do this and nobody has to know you're doing it. I've done this in Target, in the line at Target when I felt anxious. I have done this, I've actually even done this when talking to people at work. They don't realize that I'm doing this. So I'm just focusing on my breathing rather than getting wrapped up in all of my thoughts. So for anyone, if you ever experience anxiety, I want you to practice paced breathing the first thing in the morning, whether you feel anxious that day or not. If you feel happy and peaceful, great. Still practice your paced breathing. It's going to be extremely useful to you. It will extend that happy, peaceful feeling by practicing, but it's also strengthening. It's strengthening that muscle in your brain that's going to help you to more quickly move on to soothing and calming technique for yourself. So pace breathing is going to be your new best friend if you have anxiety. If you have high anxiety and you truly want to change it, I know you are motivated. The clients I've worked with, I would say, who are the most motivated are my really anxious clients. It's so miserable to feel anxiety. We will do anything to get rid of it. So devote at least 3 minutes a day to practicing your pace breathing. Observe the sensation in your body when you're done, just like you did with mindfulness of emotion. This is going to really help you to see the small bits of progress that you'll be making and building on each day. So I want to encourage you to use your pace breathing every single day, and particularly in moments of crisis. The next skill we're going to talk about is mindfulness using your 5 senses. This is the most common form of mindfulness, and this is really, it's one of the most effective skills that I have found to do 2 things at once, which is decrease emotional suffering and increase positive emotional experiences. And both of those are really what help us to live a happier, more peaceful life. So this is something that I use, I don't know, half my day is spent doing this, and it's made me such a happier person. Okay, so mindfulness with the 5 senses it's very simple, but at the beginning, when you start to practice it, it's hard. Our mind is used to being all over the place, and we are training our mind to go in a direction of our choosing. So at the beginning, it's like me working out after I just gave birth. It is not easy, it's very difficult, it feels like it's never gonna get easier. And you know what? The more you practice, the easier it becomes. Okay, so mindfulness with the 5 senses, what it means is that you turn your attention away from your thoughts, and instead you focus 100% on something that you are observing with your 5 senses. So you notice the sound of the birds outside, and you don't just hear it in the background. You turn your attention completely to hearing the pitch, to noticing which ear you hear it out of more. Every single bit of your attention goes to focusing on that, so that's sound. You can do that with the song on the radio, with the sound of your child's voice. It doesn't have to be something soothing. Sometimes it's just like listening to the sound of the TV. But what you're doing is taking your attention and focusing in this moment on something that's happening that you observe with your 5 senses. So the 5 senses are, I'm sure you know them already, but we'll just review them just to remember. Hearing, so sound that you're hearing. Taste, we're going to talk about how to use each one of these. Touch, sight, and smell. So each of your 5 senses, any one of these, I want you to think about as your way out of prison. I read the autobiography of Malcolm X when I was in college, and there was one sentence in there that has stuck with me so strongly. He talks about when he was learning in prison a new way to live with his life. He's turning his life around and no longer committing crimes. And he says his new way of thinking all of a sudden one day was like a huge chunk of snow just falling off the roof of a house on a warm day in the spring. And for any of you who live somewhere where it snows a lot, you know that that can happen. A huge chunk all of a sudden will just melt and fall off the side of the house. And that's really the kind of relief that you can get from practicing mindfulness. All of the sudden, it can be the worries, the fears, the annoyances, the angers that have completely controlled your mind, all of the sudden can be relieved by practicing mindfulness with one of your 5 senses. Any of your 5 senses can be like that warm sunshine that helps all of the pain that goes on in our head, our anxiety, our stress, our sadness, our hurt, our insecurity, our frustrations that we all experience but that can become overwhelming. Using your 5 senses with mindfulness can be like allowing that huge chunk of pain to simply fall away. And once you learn how to do this skill, you can experience moments of peace and freedom inside your head at any moment. So I want you to practice this as much as you possibly can. Okay, so using the 5 senses, the most common ways that I have found in working with clients that people have found to be effective are Listening is a big one. So if you like music, this is something you could do at any time. You can listen to music and you don't just hear the music. You throw yourself into the music. You hear every instrument. You hear every lyric. You hear the person's voice. And you let that fill your body. You let it be a full body experience by listening to the sound. And actually, Gloria Gaynor said, music is the one thing that you can't get out of your body. And it's really true. Just like emotions live in our body, music is a way to shift how you feel emotionally. So listening with sound 100%. So mindfulness with the sound of a song can drastically change how you feel. It's amazing how powerful it can be. I want you to try that with like your favorite fun song, not a depressing song, but a song that's energizing, that causes you to feel happy or peaceful. Throw your attention and observe the sensation in your body change. Another way that you can practice this is with taste. And I do this every morning. I make myself at home a vanilla latte, and that's like something I look forward to every morning when I get out of bed and I get my kids everything they need. I make my vanilla latte, and no matter what chaos is going on in my crazy house, I take a sip of that, and I'm not just sipping it while I'm watching the news or taking care of the kids. I am 100% tasting every little bit of the warmthness on my tongue and the flavor of vanilla and the sweetness and that little bitterness of the coffee flavor and the soy milk in there. Throwing myself into feeling that warmness come down my throat, and I'm fully enjoying and participating in that taste experience. That's also something you can do with food, and it doesn't even particularly have to be food you like, but just taking one grape and tasting it at a time, throwing your complete attention into it. The way that this works with anxiety is it's giving us our mind something else to focus on. If you've ever tried to meditate and you felt like, I don't know how to empty my mind, there's a million thoughts going on, we really can't empty our minds. So you're fighting an uphill battle if you're trying to just empty your mind. But what you can do is give your mind something else to focus on. And then slowly, those thoughts and those overwhelming feelings that you're having will fade to the distance as you focus on something else, and you're regulating your emotion by doing this. It will just slowly come down in the intensity that you feel it. So the next way that you can practice, we've covered sound and we've covered taste. So now I want to talk about how to use the skill of mindfulness with your five senses with sight. And the most effective way for me to practice this is to just stop and simply notice the colors around me. That's what I start with. I observe every shade of blue that I see in the sky above me. Are there shades of gray and more turquoise or more aqua? I look at every little bit of it. Are there parts of white where there are clouds? Then I turn to any trees that I see around me. I search for the trees, because for me and for many clients I've worked with, nature is a very calming influence. So I look for any trees and I look at the shape of the leaves and I see every color on the leaves. I turn my attention 100% to observing what I see around me. You can do this. It doesn't have to be some beautiful vista or looking out onto the ocean or a mountain. You can do this in a parking lot, and I have done this in a parking lot. I observe the different colors of asphalt under my feet. It's really about turning your attention to something right now that you are observing rather than the pain that's happening inside of your head. So don't feel that you have to wait till you're on vacation to practice this skill. You can practice this skill in the public restroom or the break room at work. Just turn your attention to observing shapes and colors around you and fully participate in the experience of seeing it. See if you can see something that you've never noticed in a room that you've been in many, many times before. That skill in particular, especially if you are artistic, a visual person, that one might be most soothing. I want you to notice which of your five senses is the quickest way out of the prison of your mind. So the last of our five senses that we're going to talk about is touch, feeling. And I'm using this skill right now. I'm feeling a pillow behind my back. I feel sort of a cushion feeling in the center of my back. I'm feeling some wood underneath my hand as my hand is on the armrest. What you're doing is you are simply observing and describing every bit of sensation that you feel. You can feel your feet touching the carpet and observing every little nodule in there and the softness and the harshness of the carpet. You can feel tile floor. Do you feel coldness and smoothness and real hardness from the tile? You can do this feeling your t-shirt against your skin, feeling the fabric touching your shoulders. It's about, again, turning your mind away from your thoughts and towards something else, something that's happening in this moment and something that incorporates one of your five senses. I want you to practice this and figure out which is most effective. If music and sound is most effective, then practice that over and over. The skill here is not so much about what you're focusing on, is the fact that you are training your mind to be focused outside of your own thoughts. And that's where freedom happens, where it's like the clouds parting on a really stormy day and you have a moment of sunshine. We are capable of doing this for ourselves at any moment. So I want you to figure out by practicing which of the five senses is most soothing for you. And then I want you to throw yourself into practicing this 5-10 times a day. The more you practice it, the more relief you will get when you use this skill, and the quicker you will be able to get relief during a really emotional and overwhelming time.
Good.
Okay.
Is there more on this? Or do you want just a wrap up?
Should we, let's, like, I have more, but I could go on forever. I need to get more, I need to like scale back and do
Well, I'm
less.
trying to do a wrap up.
Okay. So,
Sit up.
okay. So we've talked about we've talked about 4 different skills today for decreasing anxiety. We talked about using mindfulness of emotions. We've talked about riding the wave of emotions. We've talked about pace breathing, and then our last one was mindfulness with your 5 senses. All of these are going to be useful if you have anxiety. The more you practice, the more effective they're going to become. Remember, the key to using these skills effectively is to not expect perfection, but to grasp onto any relief that you get, to fully enjoy it, to cherish it, and to realize inside yourself that freedom is not never feeling anxiety again. Freedom is feeling anxiety and being able to get some relief. So I hope that you will find some relief from practicing these. I look forward to seeing postings of questions you have, struggles that you have. This is going to be an ongoing thing that you're going to work on. Sort of think about it like, say 5 years ago you went to the gym all the time, but now you don't go anymore. It's not really going to help you that much right now. This is something you got to practice every day if you want relief. But what I can promise you is, from the clients I've worked with, from all the research out there in the field of psychology, from my own personal experience, if you have anxiety and you practice these skills over and over, you will get some relief. It is possible for you to feel better and to not be so overwhelmed and imprisoned by your anxiety. I truly hope you will have some relief from your anxiety today from using these skills. Remember, the more you practice them, the more relief you're going to get. I can tell you from my own experience with clients and with myself that these skills truly do work. I'll look forward to sharing more skills with you again in the future in our programs, DBT for Everyone.